Hey guys, it's Michael, and yes, I am wearing my Karaguni. I'm here today to do my Hispanic Heritage Month wrap-up. So these are the books that I read during Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September 15th to October 15th. I had a great experience, but I'll talk about that at the end. So yes, let me talk first about the DNF book that I DNF'd, which was Hopscotch by Julio Cortázar, translated by Gregory Rabasa. The reason why I DNF'd this was, don't get me wrong, the premise was so cool. It's basically talking about like hopscotch, like the game. It's talking about how books don't have to be in order, and you actually read it once and then you reread it again, but this time you follow a certain pattern. And while the book is only like 500 pages, in the end it's more like 1,000 plus, because you basically read the book twice. And I just DNF'd it because I was just like, oh, okay, like I wasn't really into it. So yes, the majority of the books that I did get to was basically audiobooks because it was just easier for me. I'm finding it that audiobooks are just much easier now, just the way my reading schedule is set up essentially. The great thing about my city has a really huge Hispanic population, so there's a lot of books available not only in Spanish, like they have a section in my library like with just books in Spanish, and then they also have a lot of translated works, so it was easy to pick from a list, and I just picked one, whichever one I want. So yes, I'm gonna take this off because there's that. So yes, let's get started. The first book that I read was Gabby, A Girl in Pieces by Isabel Quintero, narrated by Kyla Garcia. We all know how booktube is a YA heavy, and I'm really surprised that no one is talking about this book because I loved it. And I'm glad it was the first book that I read because it just, like, it literally snowballed into like this great feeling because I loved this book. This book is about Gabby, who is Mexican American, and it's written in diary form. Now, I'm not gonna try to pronounce the correct term for it because trust me, it took me a long time to pronounce the word jewelry. I'm definitely not gonna pronounce that other word which begins with a pasta something. So there is that. So yes, it's written in diary form. Now see, when books are written in diary form, it could be like a scale because everything is from one character's point of view, kind of like third person, like first person. But with a diary, like, it skips stuff. Like, there are days when she doesn't write in her diary, so there's some parts where we miss like a good chunk of like a week or like 3 days. So there's parts where she doesn't decide to write, so it is what it is at that point. This is talking about Gabby, who's attending high school with her friends, and she loves literature. She's wanting to be a poet. And this book, what I really love about it was that I really related to Gabby. I understood her as a character, and I knew exactly where she was coming from, which was great. Like, I can really relate to her. This also talks about her relationship with her family, like especially her dad, who is going through things, and then her mom, she's kind of judgmental. But I feel like a lot of moms are like that. Like, she just wants the best for her child, but Gabby doesn't see it like that. Yeah, the narration on this was great. Like, I loved the voice of Gabby also. The narration was just spot on, and it brought this character to life. I really liked it. Yeah, I thought this was a great book, and I highly recommend it. It is definitely one of the best books I read this year. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I just felt like I really connected to Gabby. I just enjoyed it. Like, I just loved it. Next is How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents by Julia Alvarez, narrated by a lot of people, because each character, the four Garcia sisters, each one is narrated by someone different. The cool thing about this book is that it goes backwards. It starts off actually when they're adults, and then it switches it changes perspectives between the sister, and then like there's chunk of times where we're going backwards, so we're seeing how things are unfolding. This book is about the Garcia family who is moving from the Dominican Republic to New York and it basically tells about their life. I don't have that much to say about it because literally I thought this was okay. Like, I wasn't blown away by it or I didn't have any gripes. I just thought it was like okay, which I mean, it's just an okay book in my opinion. I gave it 3 out of 5, right? Next, I listened to 2666 by Roberto Belano, translated by Natasha Wimmer. I did a whole video about it because I knew the review was going to be long, so I'll link it right here. Go check it out. I think I did pretty well. But I have seen better reviews, but then I always think I've always seen better reviews. But yes, go check it out. Next, I listened to Me Ultima by Rodolfo Anaya, narrated by Robert Ramirez. This book, I don't know if it's classified as middle grade or YA, but I think it could literally be children's literature because this starts off as, like, he's really young. Like, I think he was in 3rd grade. He's young. And this book has actually been, like, challenged. And when I mean challenged, not like, oh, you can't put it in the library type of thing. Like, literally burned. Like, this book was burned. And after reading it, you can kind of see why. So, this book is about Antonio, or people call him Tony, who lives in New Mexico, and it's like a growing up book type of thing, but it's called Bless Me Ultima because Ultima, who is this, I'm gonna read it from this because I don't know how to pronounce it, so I put the phonetics, is a curandera, which is not like a bruja, which is like a witch. A curandera is like someone who heals, but like with herbs. There was a little bit of magical realism in it, like magical moments in here, but I was like, oh, I don't know, really? So yes, there's that. Now, the reason why I really enjoyed this book is because one of the main things about it was religion, and he's Catholic, so he's almost conflicted and challenged when Ultima comes. His family decides to take Ultima in, and she stays in the house, so his Catholicism is challenged in a way that he starts questioning about him and about her and how this kind of like magic, it's not really like magic, but this magic and his religion is mixing, and since he is a young kid, he is really questioning about his life and how things work and why things happen, because at that age you're really asking yourself those type of questions. And it's also because it's about growing up, I really love his interactions with everybody. He's just like a really good kid. Yes? What? Okay. Let this camera get back in focus. I'm sorry, my dad had to ask me how to turn off Pandora. So yes, what I also really like about this book was the writing style. It's really different because since I was looking at this like as a middle grade, it was to me it was almost like children borderline middle grade, and the language is really different. Like, it has this poetic tone to it. It almost felt as though I was reading a children's book written in a literary fiction way, if that makes any sense. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5. I really liked it. I recommend this book. The next books that I listened to is by the same author. The first one is The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz, narrated by Jonathan Davis and Stacey Snell. Now, going into this, I didn't know a lot. All I knew that it's a popular book and it won a good chunk of awards. This book is about basically Oscar Wilde, who is from the Dominican Republic, and it talks about him growing up. Now, this is the part that I was like genuinely surprised because I didn't know. So the first chapter is from his perspective, but then the next 2 chapters are switching it. It's from the other point of view of his family members, which I was like, oh, I was not expecting that at all. And I kind of felt like that was a good thing because in a way it didn't make the book that boring, because if it was just with him, because while granted his voice, I really like the voice of Oscar, I think seeing it from other different perspectives of the different characters around him, like his sister, mom, grandma, his friend Junior, it was just really nice to see that. It was like really different seeing that character from a different perspective. Oscar is like this overweight. I don't know if he was obese, but definitely overweight. That's what all the descriptions were. And he like is a geek. Also really surprised me that there were moments of magical realism because I wasn't expecting that. And again, like the voice of it was just really nice. So yes, I gave it 4 out of 5. The next book that it was part of like the CDs. I didn't know, like I was like, oh, the CD, like it was, there was like 12 CDs on the 8th CD it ended, and I was like, where's the, like, why did they give me more CDs? And it was because it was part of Junot Diaz Drown, his short story collection that was also narrated by Jonathan David. I did not know that, like I did not know that it was almost, yeah, it was short story collection, but it was, I was again surprised because I didn't know going into it was that all the stories were about Junior basically and his dad. This one covered the theme of like father and son. It seemed weird because like that I didn't know that going in, and then like halfway through the CDs I was like, wait, that's Junior, as in his friend. This was so weird that parts of Drown was actually like parts of Oscar Wilde. Why, like there's some magical realism happening in both stories that like start to diverge, which was really cool. This also covered a lot about love and finding love, because his Junior and his father are really, they talk about that. So I quite enjoyed it. I didn't think it was as great as Oscar Wilde, but I did give it 3 out of 5. So yes, overall I had a great reading experience. It was awesome finding these authors, especially Gabby and A Girl in Pieces and 2666. Those were the definite highlights. I was really surprised by Gabby because I was just going in there thinking, oh, I think this is going to be okay to start off with. Something light and fresh, like something light and something not that deep, but it was surprising. I also noticed that, I don't know if it was just maybe the books that I picked, but there's several themes that run across all of these books. There's like several things that they all had in common. Like religion is really heavy. Actually, all of these books, they at one point all of them talk about some sort of religion, well, their religion and how it really affects their culture. I thought that was really great, but I also found that the writing style within all of these was really different. Like each one of them completely like their own. They had this confidence about them, if that makes any sense. Like the writing was like spot on. Like it has this knowing of sureness, if that makes any sense. All the authors had, like, I felt like this is who they are. Like it was great. Yes, overall I'm definitely gonna do this again next year. I did discover though, like when I was trying to find books to read for Hispanic Heritage Month, that earlier in the year I've read some other Hispanic authors, which was great. So yes, if you read any of these books, let me know, and then until then I'll see you guys till later. Bye.